As we round out investigations into cold cases that rocked the country, we now head to one of the most publicized cases in the U.S. When America's Carl Hensley revisits the murder of young JonBenét Ramsey as questions still surround her death nearly 20 years later.
Christmas night in Boulder, Colorado. The year is 1996. A couple makes it home after a Christmas party and falls asleep with their 2 children already tucked into bed after the holiday celebrations. But in the hours following what should have been a silent night became a night that would send one family into a winter's darkness and a country glued to their TV set.
Police, what's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
The following day, 6-year-old beauty queen JonBenét Ramsey was reported missing by her parents. What was left in her place was a lengthy ransom note and a family terrified. But as her parents and authorities began to look for the girl, her father made a grisly discovery in his basement, the body of young JonBenét with a nylon cord wrapped around her neck. Her wrists were tied above her head and her mouth covered with duct tape. An autopsy revealed she was killed by strangulation and a skull fracture sometime before dawn. The parents said someone broke into the house through the basement window and killed their daughter while the rest of the family was asleep. However, authorities say there was no sign of forced entry. Police began suspecting JonBenét's death was caused accidentally, either by her mother Patsy or by her 9-year-old brother Burke, and believed the ransom note and appearance of the body were staged by the parents to cover it up. Suspicion was also rising because the parents refused to speak with police about the death, instead speaking to media outlets.
If I were a resident of Boulder, I would tell my friends to keep your baby close to you.
But 2 years later, the idea her brother committed the crime was thrown out. In the following days after JonBenét's body was found, things between the family, authorities, and the media began to heat up. Former detective Linda Arndt, who was the first officer to arrive at the scene the morning JonBenét went missing, believes the Ramseys knew what happened to their daughter and that she possibly was abused by a family member. There was also evidence that JonBenét was sexually assaulted before her death after police swabbed the underwear she had on at the time she was killed. However, in 2008, new DNA technology cleared JonBenét's parents and her brother Burke of the murder, but did leave police with the DNA profile of an unknown male. Unfortunately, that DNA sample did not match any profile in the FBI's database and did not lead police to any new suspect. So now authorities were back at square one as to who killed the child beauty queen while still trying to fill holes in the investigation decades later. They say evidence at the crime scene was immediately contaminated after investigators allowed the family and friends to enter the house. JonBenét's father also moved the body out of the basement, once again contaminating any evidence that could have led to a killer. Detective Arndt also said despite calling for backup, she was the only officer at the scene until 20 minutes after JonBenét's body was found, as resources were slim due to the holiday and the town had never seen a homicide. No charges have ever been filed in the death of JonBenét, but in 2006, 41-year-old schoolteacher John Mark Carr falsely confessed to murdering the girl. Despite this, authorities could not find any evidence linking him to the crime. That same year, JonBenét's mother died and was buried alongside her daughter in a Georgia cemetery. And in 2013, a grand jury found sufficient evidence to indict JonBenét's parents on child abuse charges, but a district attorney refused to sign the paperwork. But with the 20th anniversary of her death fast approaching, media outlets have revived the case. In an interview that aired in September, the dispatcher who took the initial call from the Ramsey household after JonBenét went missing spoke out. Kimberly Archuleta says the phone call seemed peculiar. Archuleta also claims after Patsy failed to hang up the phone receiver, she heard 3 voices on the other end of the line discussing the situation.
There was a male voice, and I knew that for sure. And then there was another voice. So there were three different voices. The third one was a little bit more faint, but I knew there was a third distinct different voice.
Experts say one of those voices may have actually been the girl's brother, Burke. They also claim he may have killed JonBenét during a fit of rage after she ate part of his late-night snack and the parents staged the murder to protect him. These claims are also backed by Burke's strange behavior during the initial police interviews following her death. But in a recent interview with the now 29-year-old man, he maintains his innocence.
The first thing I remember is my mom first thing in my room, really frantic, saying like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh." Running around my room looking for JonBenét. I remember the casket was small and her eyes were closed. I think one of her eyes was a little bit like droopy or something, and I thought that was weird.
But as theories behind who killed JonBenét Ramsey circulate, police are not any closer to finding the killer who took the girl's life on that cold December night. Carl Hensley, One American News.